Good evening, this is Kilo Alpha 6, Echo Tango Echo, net control for this evening's Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club TechNet. Purpose of this net is to help each other to better understand the amateur radio hobby and to learn from each other. This net is open to any licensed amateur radio operator with 70 centimeter privileges. If you have any emergency during the net, please say break, followed by your call sign, acknowledge you, and suspend the net until you advise that you are clear. We now take check-ins from all stations wanting to check into tonight's TechNet. Please call now.
This is Kilo Echo 0 Uniform Foxtrot Delta, Scott from Windsor.
Alpha Echo 0 Golf Mike, George from Berthoud.
Area KE0 UFD, AE0 GM. Anyone else like check in for tonight's TechNet? Please call now.
Good evening, Jim. This is Whiskey 0, Delta Delta Zulu, Dave and Greeley.
Hey, I got W0DDZ Dave. There's someone that doubled with you, doubling station. Please trying again. There's nothing. We have any other stations that want to check in for tonight's TechNet? Please call now.
This is Alpha Echo 0 Foxtrot. Got 4 calls.
November 0 Echo Mike Papa, Greg, Fort Collins.
Okay, we got AE0CF and N0EMP. It sounded like there was someone that doubled with Ben. If you did not hear call sign, please try again.
Kilo Delta 0 Tango Yankee Uniform, Joe and Lublin.
Okay, we got KD02YU. Any other stations wishing to check in for tonight's TechNet? Please call now.
Kilo Echo 0 Sierra Oscar Romeo Mike at Timberline Church.
KE0SOR. Remember, if you wish to check in later than that, we do take late check-ins during the net. This being my first week as net control for the TechNet, start with just doing questions. If anyone has questions or topics they would like to cover or find out more information about, please call now.
Hey, this is Taryn, KI5EEV, just checking in. And 0 EMP with a question.
EMP, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm one of the moderators on the Elmer's list, and email came through. Somebody has a Yaesu FT101 that has vacuum tube finals, and he was wondering if somebody in the area had known good finals because he's having some output problems.
I personally do not have any experience with that radio or the vacuum tube finals. Anyone listening have any comments in regards to that?
Greg, this is Katie's at TYU. Boy, that's an expensive radio. What's it not doing?
This is the old FT101. It's not the brand new SDR. He's not getting full power on all his bands, all his HF bands, and he wanted to know if somebody had output tubes for it that were known to be good output tubes. I'm going to probably refer him to Radio Dan and 0 EMP.
Oh, I say that old one now. Okay, yeah, I understand.
All right, well, thanks for checking. Back to net and 0 EMP.
This is K1DEG.
K1DEG, you just checking in or have a question?
Yeah, I was going to suggest a topic, D-Star. Start where you want to and finish wherever you need to. I want to learn all I can. K1DEG is going to listen.
Definitely a good topic. I know personally I have not gotten into D-Star much yet. I've been doing a lot of learning with the Yaesu System Fusion and DMR, and getting into more of the digital modes. D-Star is on my to-do list for this year. Anyone have any experience with D-Star that they'd like to share?
This KE0 UFD, no experience, but I just
bought an ICOM 5100 and I'd like to learn more about D-Star myself.
This is K1DEG. We have 3 D-Star radios in-house and we know nothing about them. K1DEG needs to learn.
It doesn't sound like there's many on the net this evening that have experience with D-Star, but I will definitely look into what information we can gather up for a future net to help you out and everyone else. Any other questions, comments anyone would like to ask? I do have a topic we can discuss tonight ready to go. If not, call now.
This is KI5EEV. I've noticed that with my handheld Baofeng, it seems like the 70 centimeter I can hit with less power than 2 meter, and people seem to be able to hear me better as well, so just curious on thoughts on that.
KD02YU.
TYU, Joe, go ahead.
The guy with the Baofeng, what antenna are you running? The one that came with it?
No, it's a Comet lip antenna.
What model Baofeng is it?
It's a Baofeng BF8HP.
That's the 8 watt, isn't it?
Right.
How did you test it?
Hop back and forth on the repeaters on Horsetooth. Right now I'm hitting this one on low power, but when I was on the 2 meter I had to use medium power even with this antenna to get a clear signal.
So you really haven't actually put it on a meter, is that correct?
That's right.
I would test the radio with a watt meter or something like that, and I've got one. I can help you with that if you want. But or EMP's got one. I would test the radio to make sure that that's not the problem, or it's basically the way the radio is hitting the repeater.
I see, thank you. Earlier I was making contacts out to Cheyenne, even opening up repeaters out there from Fort Collins, so at least on the 70 centimeter band, this radio seems to do pretty well.
Greg, do you agree or disagree? You're the expert.
N0MP, my first thought was that his antenna might be a better match on 70 centimeters than it is on 2 meters.
I've got a bunch of antennas for that radio. If you want to try one, just to make sure that that it's not the radio.
So it sounds like I should definitely be able to, on the same power level with 2 meter and 70 centimeter, I should have pretty equivalent coverage.
W2MIC.
W2MIC, Mark. Go ahead. We'll come back to you, Joe.
W2MIC, Mark in Loveland, late check-in. With any of these shorty antennas on a handheld, the length of the antenna is going to be closer to 70 centimeters than it is to 2 meters. As a result, any little antenna, meaning less than a quarter wavelength, is going to give you several decibels more gain or better performance on UHF than it is on VHF. So it is completely reasonable to have the same antenna and the same radio talking to the same repeater, requiring more power out of the handheld on VHF.
That's interesting, thank you. And that's even the case for like a 17-inch whip antenna?
Yes.
This is K6ET, Net Control for this evening's TechNet. Thank you for that comment, Mark. Joe, you have anything else to add to that?
Oh, I totally agree with Mark, and that's kind of where I was going. But when Mark got in there, he's always smarter than I am, and faster than I am, by the way, too. Yeah, you know, he's absolutely right. If it's just a matter of going from low power to medium power, I don't think I'd sweat it. But if you want to test it, I've got some antennas you can try out, whatever you'd like to do.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I was just mainly curious. I've actually had the stock little rubber duck antenna and then a Nagoya antenna, and now the Comet. The Comet definitely works the best on both bands. Just kind of consistently notice better performance on the 70 centimeter than 2 meter, and your explanation makes sense about the wavelength.
I'm glad we could help out with that, and sounds like Joe's willing to help you do some further testing for power output and everything if you want it. Do we have any other questions anyone would like to ask for this evening's TechNet?
MIC.
MIC, Mark, go ahead.
Yep, I'm repeating and relaying a question that I received yesterday. A fairly new ham plugged her external speaker microphone into her handheld and discovered that she was kerchunking the repeater. And she said, "What am I doing wrong?" And I said, "Well, if your radio is powered up and you plug in an external speaker microphone, you are going to trigger the handheld or the desktop to transmit as you are making the contact and shoving the plug into the jack." And so I recommended that what she do is turn off the radio before attaching or detaching an external microphone or speaker microphone. And I commented that I had this same experience of accidentally triggering or kerchunking the repeater on both my Yaesu FT60 handheld with a Yaesu factory external speaker mic and on my Kenwood D74 while plugging in an external speaker mic. I was wondering if other people have had the experience of involuntarily kerchunking the repeater while plugging in a microphone.
AE0CF.
AE0CF, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, my Baofeng has the same problem. Yeah, you ends up that it's extremely sensitive, and while the switches turn on and off while you plug in, yes, it does activate the push-to-talk circuit. So yeah, I have to turn off my. This would be a was it UV82 AE0CF.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, Ben. I have also had the same issue. Same thing happened actually for the first time yesterday with my the FT2 Yaesu handheld. I usually have it plugged in when it's turned off, but for some reason it wasn't. I turned it on and then noticed that I didn't have the mic, so I grabbed the mic and plugged it in, and it started keying up the repeater, and it wasn't once, it just kept keying and unkeying.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you. Back to net.
Anyone else have any questions or topics they would like to talk about this evening? Sounded like we had someone try and get in there. All we got was a little bit of crackling. You try again. Here's nothing. Get into a topic that I had got stuff ready for tonight. A little bit. No, that's only been going for 23 minutes now. One thing I know I do a lot with, and a lot of people do, especially with it starting to get into severe weather season, is APRS and different ways to use it and benefits for groups. One thing I've been playing around with recently and like to see more people start using is the APRS voice alert system. It's setting the APRS with the CTCSS tone of 100 hertz. What it does, it mutes the receive on everything unless someone is within simplex range and you receive their beacon directly without it going through a digipeater or iGate. Let you know someone's in simplex range and able to make contact with them. Anyone have any questions they would like to ask about APRS? Here's nothing. Got a little bit more detail about the APRS voice alert. It was actually set up through APRS. The originator, they came up with the idea and started playing with it years ago. It actually is great if you have a group of people out somewhere and don't want to listen to all the packets coming into your radio. It mutes everything except for, like I said, the packets that are within simplex range. Easy to keep an eye on, tracking teams out in the field. I know it'd be good if you have for events, for doing comms for events. Still allows everything to populate the APRS.FI map system, but doesn't disrupt anyone that's in the field actually working the event. It makes it easier to communicate between event staff and personnel with the APRS system. In a group or team type setting, I know it could also benefit other groups, search and rescue teams, ARES. I mean, it's got a lot of benefits to using a tone. I know a lot of people get in the habit of turning the volume down or muting the channel completely, and they just set a tone that mutes it for you, but you can still hear people that are close to you. They actually have it to where you can let the repeater reset. Good thing with using the CTCSS tone is if you do get someone that's within simplex range, you can key up your mic on the APRS frequency to talk to them directly and then to have them switch to a different frequency. Obviously you want to make it short, but it does not interrupt the digipeaters because of the CTCSS tone in it. It won't relay voice or anything to disrupt anything coming out. Like I said, it's fun to play with, different aspect of APRS to expand uses for a single system. Anyone have any comments or questions they would like to add? Please call now.
AE0CF, that was a very general question of APRS.
AE0CF, go ahead, Ben.
Well, wondering about these APRS units. I don't know if anyone had an idea of how many percentage of these units, APRS units, are. I guess what I'm getting at is collision handling of packets. I would guess that most of the smart terminals or the smart endpoints know when not to transmit. Like if you hear something, don't try transmitting. But I know that a bunch of them probably are fire and forget, as in don't care if it collides, but it will eventually get one that won't collide with someone else. I'm just wondering, like, how many percent of these are former type, and how many percent are the latter type, and wonder if there was. Well, I'll start with that. As a easier CF.
I've done a lot of checking and cross-referencing between packets that my APRS sends out and what actually makes it into the system. There is packet collision that prevents stuff from getting in to the system. I would say with my experience is roughly about 5%, which isn't very high. I know this area is pretty saturated with APRS packets as it is with the amount of weather stations that people have set up that transmit APRS beacons and the amount of users. I know there's quite a few in this area. You get into some of the more rural areas out in the mountains or out east, it's not as bad and the packet collision drops off as far as percentage-wise. Anyone have anything to add to that? 'Cause, 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 'cause,
And 0 EMP.
EMP, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, if you listen to the APRS frequency, an individual transmission is probably less than a second long. So even in a high environment like ours, statistically it's going to be kind of rare. Most of the APRS devices, like the weather stations and different monitoring stuff, don't even have receive capabilities, so they cannot listen before they transmit. They just blur it out at block of data at whatever rate they're set to, once a minute or whatever it is. But because they're so short, there's not a lot of collisions and 0 EMP.
Perhaps, maybe I'm getting a really skewed opinion about this, because when I tune to 144 390, I don't get very many packets, probably because my antenna's pretty crappy, so I think I'm pretty much picking up only digipeater packets because of situations. So yeah, maybe it isn't as maybe there's a lot more packets around the front range, or at least Fort Collins area than I actually am hearing a U0CF.
Yeah, there's, like Greg said, the transmissions are so quick, and I know most weather stations are set up to speak in every 10 minutes. Home stations are usually every 10 to 30 minutes. Mobile stations are 2 to 3 minutes. They're a set 1 to 2 seconds long, depending on the amount of data that it's sending, but it's not very long. I know some areas in North Fort Collins, especially up towards the Poudre Canyon and north of there, there's not very good APRS coverage as far as digipeaters or even iGates, even though there's the one right in Fort Collins and Horsetooth. They don't have very good coverage to the north and northwest areas. KA6ET, net control for this evening's TechNet. We have any other questions in regards to APRS?
Zero WIQ for a check, and no comment at this time.
WIQ for late check-in. Got you in there, Kerry. Like I said, APRS has a lot of features that can go on for days talking about. There's a lot of people that use it. Some people just like the plug and play of some radios without getting any further into it. And it is a very handy thing to have, and you know how to use. I know for me, I spend a lot of time in the back country, and there's areas that I haven't been able to reach any repeaters, but APRS works, and I'm able to send messages, whether it's in the beacon message or sending a SMS text message or email to people out along the front range to let people for a status update or let them know what's going on. Do you have any general questions anyone would like to ask on the net this evening, please call now.
Katie's there at 2YU.
TYU, Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Jim, and the rest of you guys out there that have done APRS, fortunately I have 1 and 2 radios that are in the truck, so I don't worry too much about it. My 400 does fine. But a lot of guys that are doing Skywarn and various things like that are actually using their cell phones. And I've seen the app. I've never tried it. What's somebody's opinion on radio like a 400 set up on APRS compared to like a cell phone?
My personal opinion in K6ETE is along the front range and populated areas where you know you have very good cell phone coverage, cell phone works just fine. For normal use, any type of emergency type use, I would always recommend a radio-based APRS system, just for the simple fact you're not relying on any cell service to be able to transmit anything out. Most people, a lot of people use the APRS Droid system for Android phones. You can also get the APRS FI or .FI app for iPhones, which will beacon also, but again, you're relying on the cell towers in order to communicate.
MIC.
MIC, Mark, go ahead.
I am a huge user of the APRS Droid app on my Android smartphone, and I have discovered that there is a wonderful little device called a Mobilinked, MOBILINKD, no E in there. And this is a device which will eat Bluetooth from your smartphone, in my case an Android phone, and with the appropriate adapter cable can plug into pretty much any VHF or UHF radio. This way one does not need a dedicated APRS radio. Now, I happen to own a D710, which has APRS built in, and I happen to own a Kenwood D74, which has APRS built in, but you don't actually need those. With the APRS Droid app, the GPS unit in the smartphone, Bluetooth, the Mobilinked device, which is about $70, 70 last booked, and an adapter cable for your particular radio, a Baofeng UV5R, pretty much anything. And adapter cables are 5 to 15, so under $100. You can use APRS Droid when there is good cell phone coverage, and you can adapt pretty much any VHF, UHF radio to work with APRS in conjunction with APRS Droid and the Mobilinked device.
Thank you for that comment, Mark. Yeah, I always forget about the being able to link, but I don't use Android phones. That's probably why I never think about it. That answer give you some insight on that, Joe?
I certainly am. I guess I don't know where you'd ever plug it into a Baofeng, though. I suppose they have one of those cables like the rest of these guys do for the Kenwood and the rest of that stuff. I suppose into that side socket.
That is correct. I have the adapter for the Mobilinked and my Baofeng UV5R, and it is a cable that plugs into the Mobilinked box on one side. The Mobilinked box is about the size of a pack of cigarettes, a little smaller. And then the other end of the cable plugs into both the speaker socket and the mic socket, both the two pins on the Kenwood standard connector on the Baofeng. So, yep, It's just a special cable that plugs into the Mobilink on one end and plugs into the specific radio on the other. I have adapters for my ICOM 706, my IC7100, my FT60, etc., and they all work.
But that makes the radio useless, right? I mean, that makes the radio just the APRS.
Correct. Yet another use for the cheapy little $25 Chinesium radio.
That's cool. I'll have to look that up, but to pay $100 for one I've already got, I guess maybe it might not be worth it. But for people who don't, that's an excellent way to avoid the cell service.
Well, this is my incremental how do you get into ham radio for under $100, and then once you're into ham radio with a handheld, a mobile mag mount, and an N9 TAX antenna, then how do you work upward from there? And the next step up is to add a Mobilink to whatever you have. And the great thing is you only need one Mobilink because the only additional cost per radio is the adapter, if needed, for that radio, the adapter cable.
What's the name on that site? So I'll write that down and actually post it.
Mobilinked.com, and I will spell twice, MOBILINKD. That's, let's see if I can do this in phonetics, Mike Oscar Bravo India Lima India Kilo Delta.com.
Is that LINK or LIKD?
Screwed up. It's LINKD.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So, with the Mobilinked device and cables, and the Mobilinked site carries cables for all of the standard stuff, Yaesu, Baofeng, Kenwood, and all of the standard, or the most common of the mobile 50-watt kind of radios. And they have a pointer to their cable supplier who will build a custom cable to match anything.
I see it now. I don't see one for an iOS system, just the Android.
Android to switch from using cellular data to using Bluetooth and the Mobilinked. I switch back and forth all the time. To net.
Okay, we had a double in there. Missed the first half of your transmission, Mark. Joe, you want to come back with your question and get it back to you, Mark, to where you can hopefully fill in what the double was.
I just said I see it for the Android, but I see something. It says something about iOS support, but I don't see, is it the same unit?
I have no data. I've not looked into the iPhone site at all. If Phil Burke is on, I think he has.
No, I do not think he's on this evening. I know I've talked to a few people that have tried with the iOS system and have not had much luck. So Apple does not like third-party apps that they do not approve or have their hand in. Have any other questions for the net this evening, either in regards to APRS or anything in general that we'd like to know? Please call now.
Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta, and in Fort Collins with a late check-in.
I believe it was K0 ARD, and got you on as a late check-in. If we have any other late check-ins who would like to check into the net, please call now. If not, we'll do one last call if anyone has any questions or comments. Please call.
AE0CF with the curiosity question.
AE0CF, Ben, go ahead.
For those who have done net control for a spotter, or other network that uses APRS or like to use APRS, just curious how many, like in the past couple of these nets, how often, like what is the ratio of people who have APRS versus the people who don't have APRS? I guess that. It would be nice to have everyone have APRS, at least for some kind of communication. Just curious. Easier to see.
For me personally, this year I'll be doing as a backup for net control for the Skywarn. I have done communications for events and for search and rescue teams, and one of our requirements when we go out for as far as search and rescue is everyone is required to have APRS. For some of the big events I've done, we generally have at least 70 to 80% of the people have APRS. There are some that do not, that we keep in contact with regular check-in times. Maybe someone else on here has done net control for Skywarn and can give some feedback on that.
KD0TYU.
TYU, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Ben, we're kind of asking, I've done it for years, okay? In the last couple of years, I've kind of backed down because of other responsibilities I have on Aries side. But generally, we're asking almost everybody out there to get a cell phone app or something, because I know when I'm running, I'm going to let this drop for a minute. When I'm running a net control, I've got a computer up that's got some sort of a radar sight on it or something like that that's showing me that. And then I have another computer sitting right next to the thing, or over in the corner here, that shows me an APRS overlay. And basically what I can do is I can overlay that and find out when they're at, because we need to tell these folks out in the field what's really going on. Because a lot of times they'll get themselves into trouble, and it's not their fault. They just didn't know where it was coming from. So we're asking everybody to kind of have one. In the past, I would say a pretty good, most everyone has had them when they've been out in the field.
Okay, yeah, just curious, like, I guess have we gotten to a point where no APRS, no go, easy receive?
Well, it's not fair for us to put that person in harm's way because unless they've got some radar in their car or truck, and that probably isn't what they've got, they don't know what they're getting into. So it just it's just a safeguard.
All right, that pretty much answers it. It would be great if everyone had APRS. I'm just wondering what people who don't and how they end up participating or they just don't participate, or actually you can just do it the old-fashioned way. Anyway, AE0CF back to net.
A good question. Thank you for that, Joe. That's pretty much what I had figured, but like I said, this will be my first year doing net control for Skywarn and didn't want to misquote something or get something wrong. Rather have someone answer the question with actual experience. Any other questions for this evening's TechNet? Please call now. Hearing nothing, I'd like to thank everyone that has checked into tonight's TechNet. Look forward to hearing from you next week. Also, as a reminder that the NCARC Club Net is on Wednesday evening at 6:30. And this repeater, say 7-3. Have a good evening. This is KA6ETE. The repeater is now open for general use.
For watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.